back, everyone. My name is Patrick. You're watching the Oilers Rundown. Well, we've all had a chance to digest the news now. We had the big press conference yesterday with Chris Knoblauch and Paul Coffey and Ken Holland and Jeff Jackson. I don't think the Oilers came out looking too good from that press conference. A lot of people questioning a lot of things that were said. It seemed Ken Holland and Jeff Jackson had two different messages going about how involved the players were. There is a narrative going around right now that Connor McDavid got Jay Woodcroft fired because he wanted his guy and Chris Knoblauch. I do not believe that for 1 second. Yes, Connor McDavid and Chris Knoblauch have history, but so do Jeff Jackson and Chris Knoblauch, and I think that is entirely where this came from. Tyson's brought up over at Dolany TV that he thought Jay Woodcroft would be done probably not this quickly. I don't think anybody thought Jay Woodcroft would be done this quickly, but he probably wasn't a long-term stay with the Edmonton Oilers because he wasn't Jeff Jackson's guy. Jeff Jackson is going to slowly bring in his own people. He started that already. Tyler Wright's gone. Rick Pracey brought in. Now Jay Woodcroft, Dave Manson out. Paul Coffey, Chris Knoblauch brought in. We know Chris Knoblauch has signed for this year and the next 2 years to come, so Chris Knoblauch is the guy for the foreseeable future. I do like that aspect of it. I didn't want the Edmonton Oilers to fire Jay Woodcroft and then bring in a mercenary coach that's going to try and push them for the rest of the year, and then ultimately that coach leaves, and then in the summer the Oilers have another new head coach. He is a young, up-and-coming coach. He's won at different levels. Obviously, not a ton of NHL experience, just a little bit as an interim coach with the New York Rangers, but he's been coaching in the American Hockey League for a long time. Jay Woodcroft didn't have a ton of head coaching experience either when he came in, and that proved to be very successful up until this season. And I think Chris Knoblauch can hopefully come in and have some kind of a similar impact. It helps that he has a history with some of the guys, Connor McDavid, Connor Brown, Warren Foegele, and hopefully that can help him get off the ground running a little bit faster. Obviously, this team has to absolutely get going now. Part of the reason the Oilers couldn't give Jay Woodcroft any more rope was because if things didn't turn around in the next 10 games, it was going to be too late. Doesn't change the fact I don't think they should have fired Jay Woodcroft. I don't think he's the problem, but I think it's time to move past that. Jay Woodcroft and Dave Manson, whether we agree or disagree with the decision, are gone. Chris Knoblauch, Paul Coffey are the foreseeable future for the Edmonton Oilers. Paul Coffey is only locked in for this season, and I would highly, highly doubt that he's with the Edmonton Oilers in an assistant coaching role beyond this season. I think he's there to get a better understanding of the defense, hopefully not send too much information back and forth that doesn't need to be shared. I mean, the dressing room should be a sacred place. I know a lot of people have brought that up as well and on various sports shows here that is Paul Coffey going to completely destroy secrecy or share too much information between the dressing room and Daryl Cates? I hope not. I mean, it is a possibility. Paul Coffey is the key advisor to Daryl Cates, but I'm hoping it can be a non-dysfunctional relationship there. This team just needs to put a dysfunctional past behind it. A lot of people are saying this is a return to that dysfunction. All I can say is I hope not. I think Jeff Jackson is the right guy to lead this team going forward, but time will ultimately tell, right? This is his first real big experience with something like this, and so far it's been a rocky start. So the Oilers need to get some stability going here. Hopefully Chris Knoblauch can come in and be that answer. As far as the rest of the coaching staff goes, obviously Glenn Gulutzan and Mark Stewart remain in place, as does goaltending coach Justin Schwartz. So I don't think we're going to see any other immediate changes. I think this is the coaching staff for the remainder of this season, but I think come summertime, Paul Coffey likely returns to his advisor role. I imagine Knoblauch brings in at least a couple of his own guys. Glenn Gulutzan has survived a lot of coaches here. He was originally brought in on Todd McClellan's staff. He's now been on with Todd McClellan, Ken Hitchcock, Jay Woodcroft, and now Chris Knoblauch. We know Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl really like Glenn Gulutzan, so that's part of the reason he's managed to survive all these things, but we'll see what happens there. He had been running the league's most successful power play. It has not looked that way this season, so if Glenn Gulutzan can probably help to turn that around, that might solidify his future, but Mark Stewart was definitely Jay Woodcroft's guy. He's the one that Jay Woodcroft specifically brought in, so I don't know how long Mark Stewart lasts. So we could potentially see one or two new faces on Chris Knoblauch's staff this summer, but that's looking a ways down the road. We got to live here in the present day for now because the Edmonton Oilers need to get this figured out. The one guy that has remained that I know a lot of us would have liked to have seen go along with Jay Woodcroft is general manager Ken Holland, but I think as of now, Ken Holland is just simply a figurehead. Jeff Jackson is running this team. Ken Holland will make the calls, do the trades if they need to happen, do the player transactions, but ultimately it won't be his call. It will be Jeff Jackson's call. I think if Steve Staios was still here, no doubt whatsoever, Steve Staios would be the general manager right now. So it's a circumstance thing. An opportunity opened up for him with the Ottawa Senators. He's now the president of hockey ops and general manager with the Ottawa Senators. And speaking of the Ottawa Senators, Tyson was mentioning over at Dolany TV his pick that Jay Woodcroft could end up with the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm going right now, Jay Woodcroft ending up with the Ottawa Senators. We know DJ Smith's job is hanging on by a very thin thread there. I think Michael Andlauer is just looking for any excuse at this point to let him go. So I think whether it's right away or a bit down the road, DJ Smith likely will eventually be let go by the Ottawa Senators, and I could see Jay Woodcroft and likely Dave Manson joining him there in Ottawa. So we'll see what happens with that. As far as the Edmonton Oilers general manager role, it doesn't look like that's going to change until at least this summer. It looks like they are going to hang on to Ken Holland for the remainder of the season, with Jeff Jackson essentially running the ship. As far as the rest of the team goes, obviously it doesn't look like we're seeing any other immediate changes. As Elliot Friedman mentioned in his 32 Thoughts, the Oilers have gone over all the available trade options right now. Nothing seems to make sense, so don't see anything happening on that front at the moment. Jack Campbell has continued to struggle with the Bakersfield Condors. He's not finding his game, at least right away. So I think the Oilers will remain on the hunt for a goaltender, but until they can find something that makes sense, Stuart Skinner and Calvin Pickard will be the Oilers' goaltending tandem. It's not ideal, but Stuart Skinner has been playing very well over the last few games, so if Skinner can keep that going and Pickard can pinch hit every now and then when he's needed to, the Oilers should be okay. There is always the possibility that Jack Campbell does eventually come back, but right now, as we've seen through a few games, it does not look like he's finding his game. He's struggling just as much in the American Hockey League as he was in the NHL, so I don't see Jack Campbell coming back to the Edmonton Oilers anytime soon. And looking ahead to tonight, Chris Knoblauch will coach his first game against the New York Islanders, just like Jay Woodcroft did, so kind of poetic in that way. Let's take a look at the lineup that Chris Knoblauch has put together for tonight's game against the Islanders. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Connor McDavid, and Sam Gagner will make up the top line. Evander Kane, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman on the second line. Dylan Holloway, Ryan McLeod, and Warren Foegele on the third line. And Raphael Lavoie will play with James Hamlin and Derek Ryan on the fourth line. Connor Brown looks like he still remains out, but he was skating in that 13th forward position today. On the blue line, Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci, Matthias Ekholm and Evan Bouchard, Brett Kulak and Vinny Desharnais, and Stuart Skinner is expected to get the start in goal tonight against the Islanders. So it's a bit of a different looking lineup. Sam Gagner on the top line. We'll see how that goes. I don't think anybody saw Sam Gagner being at the top line at any point this season, but hey, he's been one of those guys that has been going for the Edmonton Oilers along with Warren Foegele and Evander Kane, so we'll see how this goes. I think Chris Knoblauch's kind of going with Sam Gagner's been going, so let's put him on one line. Evander Kane's been going, let's put him on one line. Warren Fogel's been going, let's put him on one line. And hopefully it leads to some kind of success from there. But that's all I have for now, guys. Let me know your thoughts on the lineup, on the coaching changes. What other changes do you think we'll see? Let me know in the comment section below. If this is your first visit to the channel and you like what you see, please consider liking and subscribing for all the latest Oilers content. You've been watching the Oilers Fanatic. Thanks for being a fan.